We both went from kind of like struggling offline networkers to successful online networkers and attraction marketers. So what I want to ask you, because we have a similar journey, the main differences and similarities between offline prospecting and then online prospecting.
Yeah. So offline prospecting, the bottom line is to get good at it, you actually need to be trained in sales. No one ever talks about traditional network marketing strategies or offline prospecting being sales, but that's actually what it is. It's a sales strategy, a sales process. There's different sales steps. There's psychology, there's presenting, there's follow-up, there's objection handling. Those are things that are talked about in sales. So those are sales skills. And so the problem with offline prospecting is that it's leaders, first and foremost, they don't call it sales. They call it, oh, it's not it's not selling, it's sharing. And they actually don't train people effectively on how to do sales. So they kind of like set them up for failure. And so people who do offline prospecting, traditional strategies, are actually set up to fail, because how can you train somebody effectively if you won't even acknowledge what it is you're training them at? It's like kind of like going to get trained at a martial arts school and go get trained to fight, but we're not going to tell them it's fighting, so we're just going to train you, and maybe eventually you'll figure out that you have to get really good at fighting, but you never call it fighting. It just it doesn't make any sense.
Crazy.
So and the other issue with offline prospecting strategies and is that they're not called sales. And here's the thing, I would actually be okay with it. I would actually be fine. It is totally a legitimate strategy to be teaching offline prospecting or sales strategies to network marketers, as long as you acknowledge what it is you're teaching them, and two, you actually train them effectively on how to do it. There's a good friend of mine, Tim Sales, in network marketing, multiple seven-figure earner, legend in the industry. In the 90s, his main strategy for building a seven-figure team was cold calling. It was literally buying leads, having his downline, his team members buy leads. He taught them how to buy leads. He taught them how to evaluate whether the leads they were buying were any good or not, so that they didn't waste any money. And then he actually taught them and trained them in a very systematic way how to do cold calling. If you've ever gone through any of his first class MLM tools training, that's essentially what he's teaching. He's teaching people how to effectively, in a very systematic way, become an amazing cold caller. And then he duplicated that across his team. So what most people call duplicatable, well, that certainly didn't fall under the category of duplicatable, but it duplicated nonetheless, because he was an effective trainer at teaching a sales strategy to his team. In that case, it was a cold calling sales strategy. So that's the problem with offline prospecting, and the biggest, my biggest issue. Now, but it can work. Clearly, I just gave an example of a strategy that can work, but network marketers are not properly trained. And the reason they're not trained in how to do sales, to do offline prospecting effectively, is because probably leaders believe that if you actually told your new recruit that they had to learn sales, they wouldn't do it. They'd run away. And maybe that's true, but you're now building the business in a dishonest way. Now, when it comes to online prospecting, that kind of falls into two categories. That calls into number one is it's just more of the same being done online. So traditional methods for offline prospecting being applied online. So still having people attempt a sales strategy without being told it's sales, without being given the effective skill set to be able to do that well. And it turns out to be very spammy, and it turns into a lot of rejection, just like offline traditional prospecting. And so that's where, when it comes to online prospecting, that's camp number one. It's the same old crap being taught to people in an ineffective way and not working. The other side of online prospecting, I wouldn't even call prospecting at all. It's called attraction marketing. And that's my favorite, approach, and probably the one that's going to be the most enjoyable for most network marketers. And what attraction marketing is, it's a direct response marketing strategy applied specifically for network marketing. So if you don't know direct response marketing, it's basically a way of doing marketing and advertising that is for people or for businesses that are on a low budget, especially when they're competing with bigger brands. But it could also be applied in a way where you can actually specifically target or have your message reach people that actually have problems that what you offer solves.
Mhm.
So attraction marketing is basically content marketing. A lot of what you see on social media, different types of content marketing. Attraction marketing also includes social engagement, engaging with social media, or engaging with people on social media, and then also advertising. And all of those strategies, content marketing, social engagement, and advertising, you're going to do them in a way that actually specifically targets a group or a population of people that have a problem that your product or opportunity can solve. And so that's how attraction marketing is different. The whole old adage, everyone is not your prospect, or everyone is your prospect. Well, our adage for attraction marketing is everyone is not your prospect. We specifically target a group of people. Now, just because we say we're targeting a group of people doesn't mean that group of people is going to be small. We're still talking about millions of people potentially in your target market. So that's the alternative to selling, because so instead of trying to convince people or trying to sell them or objection handle all that stuff, we take a very targeted approach for creating content, for engaging on social media, and if you have the budget or the skills to do it, eventually learning how to do advertising that passively attracts people to you that are in your target market, that are specifically looking for what you have to offer. So if you do that, what you're actually doing with marketing is you're attracting people to you so that you have an opportunity to demonstrate to them that you can help them. And the best way I can think of convincing somebody to help them without trying to sell them is by actually helping them. So that's when people say lead with value, that means show people you can help them by actually helping them. Share information that's insightful, that helps them understand their problem or issues at a deeper level, that educates them on things they can do right now to make their problem less of a problem or have it go away. That way you build influence with them, you build credibility. And so that when you actually have a conversation about your product, or you invite them to take a look at your product or opportunity, that influence is the reason they trust you. That influence you built with them is the reason they're open. That's the reason, offline traditional prospecting doesn't work, is because you're approaching somebody out in the mall or your waiter or whatever, and you invite them to take a look at something. You're hoping to blow them away with an amazing sales presentation, so that they fall in love with your company. But the reason most people don't join is because there's no relationship, there's no influence. They just barely met you. So you have to be amazingly good at sales in order to convert that person. Our approach is different. Let's attract a lot of people, grow an audience, and demonstrate to them through value and content that we can actually help them by actually helping them. And so that when we actually invite them, they're familiar with who we are, they've seen what we can do, and they're more open to our message.